What if the most powerful thing you could say was nothing? There's a kind of presence that doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't rely on seduction tactics or well-rehearsed lines. It lives in the quiet space between words, in how you see her without looking, feel her without touching, and understand her without making her explain herself. Today's content is about that kind of power, the kind of power Stoic men carry when they no longer seek validation but lead with awareness. This isn't about charm or strategy, it's about attunement. Women don't always say what they want, but their body, energy and silence often do. And the man who knows how to read those subtle cues, who listens with his eyes and speaks with his stillness, becomes unforgettable. Not because he tries to be, but because his presence demands it. This video will reveal 4 unspoken desires every woman holds close to her chest. Things she wants, but may never say out loud. Things that when you respond to them, not with desperation, but with composed clarity, flip the entire dynamic of power and connection. We'll talk about why a woman needs her mind undressed before her body, why your mysterious absence can sometimes make more noise than your presence, why you can say more through a silent gaze than 1,000 carefully crafted messages, and why the unknown, the man who remains unlabeled, undefined, can be the one she's always chasing. This is about attraction without effort, command without control, connection without neediness. And it's all rooted in a deeper philosophy, one you won't find in dating apps or pickup guides. It's the philosophy of Stoic masculinity. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Today, we will dye your presence with silence, depth and clarity, so she doesn't just notice you, she feels you. Let's begin. Number 1, undress her mind before you touch her skin. There's a silent art to intimacy that most men never learn. They rush in, fueled by impulse or desire, and forget the very essence of what women truly crave, connection that begins in the mind. Before her body opens, her thoughts must feel safe. Before she surrenders physically, she must feel understood emotionally, and that's where most men fail. They touch skin before they touch soul. But the Stoic man knows better. He listens not to reply, but to feel. He doesn't interrupt discomfort with premature advice. He doesn't turn vulnerability into a puzzle to solve. He lets her speak, then allows silence to do the rest. That kind of man creates a space that women long to return to, because in a world full of reaction, he simply receives. Undress her mind before you touch her skin isn't just poetic, it's psychological. A woman's attraction lives in what you say and what you hold. Her nervous system scans for safety, attunement and authenticity, and if you can make her feel seen in her chaos without trying to fix or label it, her heart opens before her lips ever do. This doesn't mean you become her therapist. It means you become the mirror, reflecting her back to herself with stillness. Your role isn't to chase her into comfort, it's to become the place she collapses into without explanation. From a Stoic viewpoint, this is the discipline of presence. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." A man who remains still in the storm, who listens with no agenda, helps dissolve the storms in others. Not by changing their minds, but by holding the container of their emotion. When a woman feels that kind of masculine energy, something ancient awakens in her. She relaxes. Her body breathes. She realizes this is rare. Most men move fast to satisfy ego, but the man who lingers in her thoughts, who makes her feel deeply understood, becomes unforgettable. You don't have to say the perfect thing. You don't have to give the perfect touch. You must be present enough to catch the moment when she wants to be seen, not seduced. This kind of presence can't be faked. It comes from a man who has met his mind first, who has undressed his own shadows before ever trying to hold hers. And when you become that kind of man, you don't have to ask for intimacy, it finds you. Now comment below. Real connection begins before a single touch. Number 2. Own the room, then disappear like a ghost. She walks into the room, she scans. Men are talking loudly, cracking jokes, trying to be seen. But her gaze keeps drifting back to the man who isn't seeking attention, who sits quietly, completely at ease with himself. He doesn't need the spotlight, he is the spotlight. This is the paradox of presence. When you own a room without demanding it, people feel you without knowing why, and when you leave, they feel the absence even more than the presence. That's the Stoic man's power. He knows when to show up, and just as importantly, when to disappear. Owning the room doesn't mean dominating it. It means grounding it. You don't overwhelm, you anchor. It's the way you carry your posture, the way your eyes scan without rushing, the stillness in your breath, the non-causativity in your face. While others chase approval, you radiate assurance. And then, just as curiosity peaks, you vanish. Not rudely, not dramatically, just silently. No announcement, no lingering. Because you understand something most men don't. The most intoxicating energy isn't presence, it's mystery. A man who knows when to step back becomes the question in her mind long after the moment ends. She wonders, where did he go? Why didn't he stay? Why didn't he try harder to be seen? And the more she wonders, the deeper the intrigue grows. From a Stoic viewpoint, this is the essence of detachment. As Epictetus reminds us, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Translate that into presence and it becomes, power is not in needing to be seen, but in not needing to be validated. Women are drawn to men who don't orbit around them. They're pulled toward energy that doesn't cling or overexpress. Why? Because it signals security. It says, I'm whole, with or without your recognition. This is why you own the room first, by being fully rooted in your own energy, and then you disappear, not to manipulate but to maintain polarity. You don't reward curiosity with easy access. You let her feel your absence and decide if she wants more. And if she does, she'll seek it. She'll return. She'll reach out. Because in a world full of men shouting, "Look at me," the one who walks away without explanation is the one who stays lodged in her mind. Don't be the echo. Be the silence that makes her notice the absence of noise. No comment below. I don't chase attention, I leave impressions. Next, ChatGTP Denoy. Number 3. Touch her soul without saying a word. There's a moment, brief, often unnoticed, when a woman looks at you not for words, but for energy. Her eyes search your face, not to hear something clever, but to feel something true. And if you understand that moment, if you hold it with complete stillness, you touch her in a place no hands ever could, her soul. Most men miss it. They rush to fill the silence. They scramble for something charming or impressive to say. But the Stoic man knows the most powerful form of connection comes not from what you say, but from what you withhold. You look her in the eye, not with intensity, but with depth. You don't try to read her, you feel her. You don't interrupt her silence, you respect it. And in doing so, you become the one man who doesn't demand her energy, but who holds space for it to arrive. This is how you touch her soul, not with words, but with unwavering presence. You let your stillness speak. You let your breath slow hers. You let your eyes tell her, "I see you," even when you don't know what you're trying to say. Women are sensitive to this kind of energy. It's primal. They may not articulate it, but they feel it, and once they do, it's hard to forget. Because being deeply felt without needing to explain oneself is a rare experience, especially in a world full of men chasing bodies instead of holding being. Stoically speaking, this is the embodiment of internal mastery. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If your inner world is calm, centered and grounded, you transmit that without ever needing to speak. Your very presence becomes a signal of safety, and safety is the birthplace of connection. This is why a man who can sit in silence without discomfort, who doesn't perform or reach, becomes the one she leans into. Because he represents something she rarely finds, a masculine energy that doesn't want to consume her, but to contain her without expectation. Really, you don't need to be poetic, you don't need to be seductive, you just need to be there fully. That's how you touch her, not physically but psychically. That's how you create intimacy that lingers. You say nothing, but she hears everything. No comment below, she felt me before I ever spoke. Number 4, make her chase what she can't name. Not every desire is spoken. Some are felt in the pause between messages, in the subtle energy shift when a man suddenly becomes less available. She doesn't say it, but she senses it. Something in her is reaching, wandering, chasing, and she doesn't quite know why. This is the hidden magnetism of the Stoic man. He doesn't just present an appealing version of himself, he withholds the pieces that invite her to lean in. He doesn't explain his every move, he doesn't clarify his intentions at every turn, and because of that, he becomes impossible to define and harder to forget. Women aren't drawn to obvious men, they're drawn to mystery, to contradiction, to depth. When your energy is both warm and distant, curious yet calm, you create an emotional puzzle that her subconscious needs to solve. She starts to think about you at odd moments, not because you tried harder, but because you revealed less. You didn't say what you wanted. You didn't chase after her affection. You didn't label the connection. And that's what makes her chase what she can't name. From a Stoic point of view, this is the art of non-attachment in love. As Epictetus reminds us, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. A man who can engage without clinging, connect without control, and walk away without drama becomes the one she can't stop thinking about. Not because he's playing games, but because he's playing from within. This doesn't mean you manipulate. It means you remain undefined. You let her feel something that doesn't fit into a checklist, something that whispers, "This is different." And that subtle disturbance in her routine, in her pattern of expectation, is what makes you unforgettable. It's not about withholding love, it's about withholding certainty. Because the more she feels like she knows everything about you, the less she feels the mystery, and attraction dies in predictability. So, be warm, but don't be always available. Be present, but not performative. Let your emotions come through in moments, not all at once. Create a space where she wonders, what's he thinking? Why do I miss him when he's gone? Why does he make me feel this weightless confusion? That's the effect of a man who gives her no label to hold on to, but every reason to hold on, because the most powerful connections are not always clear, they are felt, and when you embody that kind of depth, she doesn't just remember you, she obsesses. No comment below, she'll chase the mystery, not the man who gives it all away. Attract her without force, let silence and death lead. She won't remember the man who spoke the most. She'll remember the one who made her feel without fully understanding why. The one who didn't explain himself constantly. The one who touched something deeper in her, not with words, but with presence. Let's be clear, Attraction that lasts is never about control. It's about containment. It's about becoming the kind of man who doesn't need to be chased, but who naturally draws others in with the weight of his silence and the clarity of his self-possession. This entire video has been a study in that invisible magnetism. Not the type that demands attention, but the type that quietly commands it. You explored her mind before touching her skin. You owned the room, then vanished without explanation. You spoke with your eyes, not your mouth, and you created a mystery so real she couldn't help but feel drawn toward it without even knowing what it was. This is what it means to love like a Stoic. Not with coldness, but with calm intensity. Not by giving everything away, but by offering a sense of safety without surrendering your sense of self. Most men think love is about convincing, proving, impressing, but you now understand the deeper truth. Real connection comes from embodied stillness, from knowing who you are even when no one is watching, from showing her that her presence in your life is a choice, not a requirement. Stoicism isn't about being emotionless. It's about being unshakable. And when that steadiness radiates through the way you love, speak, and show up, it becomes the very thing she's been looking for, often without knowing it. So let her come closer, let her wonder, let her feel something in you that no one else offered her. A man who sees without staring, feels without needing, and speaks volumes without saying a word. That is the man she remembers. That is the man she respects. That is the man she quietly hopes returns, even when he's gone. And that, brother, is the man you already are, if you just learn to stop chasing and start being. Now comment below, I attract with presence, not performance. So now you know, she doesn't need a man who talks over her fears. She needs one who feels through them. She doesn't need to be impressed, she needs to be seen. And she doesn't need control, she craves a presence too strong to be controlled. Undress her mind before her skin, make the room yours, then disappear like mist. Touch her soul without uttering a word. And above all, become the one thing she cannot name, but cannot stop chasing. Because women don't fall for men who demand attention. They fall for men who command it. By being grounded, silent, and fully alive, this is what it means to be Stoic in love. Not cold, but centered. Not indifferent, but unattached. Not distant, but deeply rooted. And when you move from that space, love doesn't just follow, it surrenders. Now ask yourself, are you the kind of man who needs to be explained? Or the kind of man who's felt in every room he enters, even in silence? Comment below, she remembers my silence more than their noise.